Merivesi on erittäin hyvä ja vilvottava. Ei ole liian kuumaa, niin se olisi kesällä jopa. Tultiin ostaa nyt kanaa sitten. Tää pitäisi olla oikein hyvä paikka. Tää on meiltä muutaman kilometrin päässä. Nyt on hyvä aika vetää vähän leukoita alkulämmöksi.
Vinny Eastwood Show. Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live on Ground Zero Radio. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, we're the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists. Vinny's jokes.
And welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Vinny Eastwood Show, live today on New Zealand Freedom Hub Radio through Ground Zero Radio. Check out the website, download the app, and you can start listening to Ground Zero Radio almost immediately. The Vinny Eastwood Show episodes and archives are available on there, as well as Spotify and iHeartRadio and Podbean, I believe. If you are on those apps, search it up and have a look and what have you. And I'm very grateful to have you all here listening today. So those people who are watching on the Twitch, the Facebook, and the YouTube, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is you happen to be in this wonderful world. For those of us in New Zealand, it's around about 10 a.m. on Mondays as well, when the show's going to be starting for the month of October. When we get into daylight savings time in November, that will be then 11 a.m. Till midday in the New Zealand Standard Time on the Mondays. And for those of you in the rest of the world, you haven't passed legislation in your country to make daylight saving last an extra month longer like New Zealand has. So it'll just be the same time, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard on Sundays, right there on Ground Zero Radio. Very grateful to have this network happen to pick me up. We had a discussion on New Zealand Freedom Hub Radio last night with Brendan and Barack and I believe Mr. Trotter about what happened when I left Republic Broadcasting Network. And this was all a bit confusing because they were like, oh, John Statmiller was still running it. It's like, no, he's actually passed away. And this whole thing about confusion. Okay, so the title of today's show is about managing stress as a conspiracy theorist. Okay, so as a conspiracy theorist, and I use that term operatively, there's a connotation that conspiracy theorist means you're a crazy person who doesn't know what's going on, or you believe things that just there's no facts or evidence to substantiate it. And in some cases, yeah, that's actually true. But in most cases, no, it's just not true. A conspiracy theorist is a person who believes, absolutely believes, cannot be convinced otherwise, that powerful people who have a lot of influence use their power to maintain and grow that influence. Very insane, right? And the opposite end of the spectrum to being a conspiracy theorist is a coincidence theorist who believe that everything happens by coincidence. There's no such thing as deceit or backroom deals or planning. And at some point in the middle of the 20th century, the most wealthy and well-connected plutocrats, bureaucrats, and otherwise correctly termed sociopathic, psychopathic, child trafficking Satanists all got themselves together and decided to stop doing what they were doing in the mean and naughty ways they were. Okay, they just had this profound realization in the middle of the 20th century. And hey guys, I just realized that we're hurting people. You know,
And well, the only reason we're doing it is for money and power. So, like, it's just not justified. We've got enough money and power. Let's just let humanity be free and decide for themselves how their lives should be run.
That's how a coincidence theorist thinks. They think that evil goes to sleep. Evil does not sleep. It waits. It waits for an opportunity. And we have given them the evil of this world, whether you want to call them the Jews, the reptilians, or whatever you think is actually running the show or contributing.
Yes, hi everybody, and welcome to see Riku Suoraan, which means in English Riku Direct. So I would have liked to play that whole video, Vinny, the conspiracy therapist. That's probably the go-to clip from Vinny I've seen that really moves me, and it's very strong with its message about what is the reality where we are, and when you wake up to it, it's really in depth. How is it to be the black sheep, pretty much the only one who knows what's going on there, or at least knows that it's all a lie, pretty much what you see, and trying to tell it to other people, how it makes you feel, how you can pretty much treat it. We'll probably talk about those things here in this show today also. I'm coming to you from Mexico. Vinny is the Alex Jones of New Zealand, and so he's coming from New Zealand. And without further ado, let's get Vinny in.
G'day, hey, mate. Brother. How you doing?
I'm good. Looking forward to this. It's what you're gonna say. It's gonna blow my mind anyway. So I'm just gonna let you speak a lot, and that's how it should be, because you got a lot of things to say. And that intro video I put on, I'm gonna put it in the description, and I highly recommend everybody who's in the know of what's going on, go through that video and see if you like it. Does it ring any bells? It's a great video, Vinny.
Yeah, I think it's something Mark Passio taught me is you have to have your input, your processing, and then your output. You need to learn what you want to know, then you have to understand what you think you know, and then you have to understand it well enough to be able to teach it to others. And generally speaking, that takes what we talked about on a podcast before, the 10K. 10,000 hours of research, study, application of what you've been learning in order to figure things out. That's like bare minimum in order to have like just an idea, because we're talking about such a complex situation, right? Imagine you're a child, you're born into the world, you don't know anything. The only thing you know for sure is that you love booby. Right, and then you have to learn all the 100,000 other rules for how to live in a Western industrialized society. 100,000 rules, right? They say that on average. And in the conspiracy thing, it's more like 200,000 to 300,000 rules, because everything that you are doing, you have to know how to do it perfectly, and you also have to know the reason why you're doing it in addition to what you're actually doing. So this becomes a big challenge for the intellect, and don't mean to say that if you're not, quote unquote intelligent enough, that you can't get the general vibe of things, because one part of being a conspiracy theorist is you get tempted by the occult, the secret, knowledge that you can either A, keep to yourself and benefit from having a one-up on other people like the elite do, and everybody has this choice, or you can choose to de-occult that information and give it to others and give them the power of that knowledge rather than keeping it for yourself.
They don't want it. They don't want it. When they first hear it, they don't want it. They hate you.
Yep. The first rule of the ancient mystery schools who used to teach this secret information was stop lying. And that means lying to other people and to yourself, right? And a lot of people, particularly artists and almost all the people in the truth movement, as you mentioned before the show, are musicians or artists of some description. And my music producer told me that artists, especially the good ones, are broken people. All right, people who have been through a lot. They've lost friends, family members. They've been in abusive relationships. They've had hard upbringings. They've been street kids. They've had businesses or ideas stolen from them and things of that nature. And that loss, that grief, that pain is basically your inspiration. Because if you look at a human being as basically, the definition of a biological organism is a organism that responds to stimuli, right? That's the very basic definition. If you prod a cell with a needle or something like that, the cell will react to it, and it'll react to changes in environment. So the environment that's created people like us has been a fire. All right, and what happens when you put iron in a fire? It turns into steel, right? And that's what we've been doing. We've been steeling ourselves against the darkness, because darkness is something that, although very foreboding, cannot stand up to the light. As soon as light appears, every bit of darkness around that light will scuttle away. And that's what we're here to do. And that's why I believe humor is very important in this vein, is the meaning of the phrase to make light of a situation. If you're in a dark reality, making light is not a bad thing at all, and it doesn't mean you're not taking the source material seriously.
Well, you from the get-go, you got me. So this is gonna be really, really good info what you're gonna give and how you put it out, because like your show, it's very lively, and how you put it, that's the performance part. But then it comes from a wealth of wisdom, and that comes from the steel making process you've had to go through. That's where it comes from. That's where the wealth of info and
I wouldn't say that. I would say the thirst for the info came from that. The wealth of info, on the other hand, came from the thousands of people that I've interviewed who've also been through tough stuff, but have gone on to create worldwide health organizations, or have written books, or have been successful on Wall Street trading ethically, or have made scientific or technological discoveries, or made music that has changed the way that other musicians look at things. So there's a feedback loop that is kind of triggered by the old-fashioned notion that if you wanted to learn from the elders of your tribe long ago, you would sit by the fire with these elders and listen to them speak. So after going to university, I realized that I didn't like the elders that were teaching me things around that particular fireplace. So I started seeking out my own ones, and I got probably during 2008 through till today, basically the biggest guests that are on the biggest international talk radio shows on the alternative circuit, I've had on my little show from New Zealand. And people wonder how I did that, and it's because I did the one thing that no other New Zealander thought to do. I asked them, right? And it shouldn't be surprising that people who spend their time and effort and make sacrifices to try and serve humanity by discovering new things and teaching it to others, it should not be surprising that they are more than willing to give their time for free to somebody who does want to listen, who has listeners, for other people to be exposed to their message. So they're more than willing to do it. All you have to do is ask, and you can practically get anybody. And some of them are much more difficult to get a hold of, not because they're too busy or something of that nature. There's all sorts of reasons why somebody wouldn't want to come on your radio show. Some people have blocks. They'll take one look at your show or one look at your thing, and they'll have a little hair stand up on the back of their head and go, no, this show is not for me. And it's happened a number of times, but you roll with it, because at the end of the day, what happens is when you become a conspiracy theorist, it's like two people approaching you with an offer for how to spend the rest of your life. First person comes in and says, "Vinny, I want you to sell truth." And Vinny goes, "Truth? Why should I sell truth? What would I get rewarded with?" "Well, you're going to lose most of your friends. In fact, you're going to lose all your friends. You're probably going to lose your job and maybe your place to live, and you'll sort of get made fun of by most people and become sort of a social pariah." That's the rewards of spreading the truth? Yeah. You're not really selling me on this, bro. Yeah, I know, it's the truth. You can't really dress it up. Right. Well, what about you, mate? What do you reckon I should sell? I reckon you should sell lies, Vinny. Lies? Why should I sell lies? Mate, you're gonna be rich. All these famous and beautiful people that you see, all these talented, amazing people on the TVs and the movie screens and in the radio studios and the music industry will be your friends. You'll go round to their houses. You'll do cocaine with them. You'll have a really hot wife. You'll be able to shag other chicks on the side. You'll have an awesome $1 million car. You'll have a multi-$1 million home. You'll have all the bells and whistles, brother, and respect and adoration from the masses. Really? That's what I get if I sell lies? Yeah, mate. Well, what are the unintentional consequences of telling the truth then? Oh, well, all those friends that you lost, you'll gain new ones, and they'll be real, and you'll know who they really are, and they'll know who you really are. And they'll be loyal and supportive to you in times of hardship. And although you won't necessarily be rich, everything you need, exactly when you need it, in the precise amount that you require, will turn up at the exact time that it needs to. And you won't really have to worry about anything. Oh, that's the unintentional consequences of telling the truth? Yes. What are the unintentional consequences of telling lies then? Oh, well, all those famous friends and things like that you think are your friends, right? Yeah. Well, they're not really your friends, because you're too busy lying and lying to yourself, and so are they, that when something real happens to you and you get sick or you become depressed or something like that, none of those people will actually be there for you. They won't actually back you up or help you out. They'll just disappear like dew on a desert morning. And your wife, who you love so much, she'll just leave you for another guy who's got more money and power, who's better at lying than you. You'll lose your car, you'll lose your home, you'll lose your business, and you'll be out on the street just as soon as one bad thing starts happening to you. It's like, really? That's the unintentional consequence of telling lies? Yeah, mate. You see, we have a choice. Do you want to live a life of constant anxiety an uncertainty that comes from dishonesty, or do you want to have the solidity, the rigidness, and the comfort that comes with the animating contest and hardship of freedom?
That was really good. You made it a show, but it was all with good. It had everything had a powerful, like a purpose behind it. So it's not fun. It's fun to look at, but it's not fun what you're talking about. It's the reality, and it hits me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Love that kind of. Yeah.
Well, there's only two things you can guarantee about reality. Guaranteed. It is what it is, and it isn't what it isn't.
Yeah. So let's go with the thing like from there, because I know a lot of people who woken up and they feel anxiety and depression and the grief process. Talk about that a little bit and how you treated it. Like you have few answers, I know, but just take your time and explain it as you will.
The most important thing I think happened to me was the meeting of a woman named Evelyn Gilbert, and she was taken from us far too early for my liking. It was one of the greatest losses I think I've ever really suffered. And she taught me about complex post-traumatic stress. And basically what causes this, it's different from post-traumatic stress. Post-traumatic stress is something really horrible happened to you this one time, and anytime something similar to that happens, you will get what we call triggers. Your nervous system will start to tense up, adrenaline will start pumping, and you can have panic attacks or screaming matches or rage and things of that nature, because this is a survival mechanism. Your body remembers what you went through and doesn't want to go through it again, and will start to panic and go crazy as soon as something similar to what you've suffered through appears again. This is why if you're a conspiracy theorist, you will start yelling at your family or your friends, or start swearing or trolling people on Facebook, or flying off the handle, because you're traumatized and you don't understand the fact that you've been traumatized. And so if you want to understand what complex post-traumatic stress is in relationship to post-traumatic stress, it's exactly the same mechanism, except post-traumatic stress happens one time with one incident. Complex post-traumatic stress happens over a period of time, between 1 and 6 months, depending on the individual. Trauma of varying degrees. You might be in a bad relationship with somebody. It might be a business partner. It might be a romantic partner. It might be a frenemy. And they'll abuse you, they'll use you, they'll treat you like dirt, and they'll control you, and they'll threaten you, and they'll manipulate you, and all of this kind of thing. So over that period of time, each and every one of those forms of abuse, which means it's not supposed to be used this way, abuse upon your body makes you feel like you're not in control of your life. Okay, and your nervous system reacts to it by rewiring it, I would say, better for dealing with threats. Now, it might be controversial to say that your brain's now been rewired better, but it's not better in terms of everything. It's just better for recognizing threats, sometimes with a bit of training and a little bit of understanding. So on the physiology of it, your response to threats becomes very, very different to the average untraumatized person who does not suffer complex post-traumatic stress. Your prefrontal cortex, that's the front of your brain, your primate brain, that does your thinking. Black, white, numbers, pluses and minuses. It deals with the logic of the situation. Okay, so if you're under a threat scenario, that is the first phase that goes through. You can see a man running at you with a stick, and you understand the implications of it in a very matter-of-fact format. As soon as your brain clicks on to the fact that this thing is actually a real threat, then your brain begins to trigger emotions. That's when it lapses back into the mammalian cortex in the middle of your brain. This governs our emotions, our social awareness. So somebody's coming at you in a threatening response, you're going to feel panic or anger or something of that nature, and then it will trigger a third response in the reptilian cortex. This is at the base of the skull, connected directly to the spine, right? And this governs your fight or flight responses, or if you want to term them more correctly, your fight, flight, freeze, submit, and attach responses. That's what happens when you're assessing a threat. You assess the threat, you feel the threat, you react to the threat by whichever way. What response you do depends on the threat. If you can beat them, you fight. If you can't beat from them, you run. If you can't run away from them, you freeze and try to hide. If you can't freeze or try to hide, if they've got you and you can't get away from them, you submit. And if they've got you for a long enough time and they demand certain things of you, you will begin to attach yourself to your abuser. All right? These are all our threat responses. Now, that is a normal, healthy way of dealing with threat responses. Complex post-traumatic stress, on the other hand, as soon as you see the guy running at you with a stick, you immediately go into reptilian cortex mode. There is no thought, no emotion, just reaction. All right? Now, the reason why I say that this is better for survival is often a matter of a second, maybe even less sometimes. If somebody is threatening your life or the life of your family and you can't immediately bypass your emotions and your logic and just kill it or get away from it, that kind of thing, you're going to die, right? So conspiracy theorists, I think all of us suffer from complex post-traumatic stress. That's why we appear to be so freaking volatile, is because the brain can't differentiate between what it is seeing and what it is remembering. So if you are seeing something that triggers a memory of something bad that has happened to you, you will react as though that thing that happened to you is happening right now. Okay, it's an overarching threat. It distorts your reality essentially. So this is what we've got to do in order to process these emotions and process these thoughts. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy. If you're having a response to a threat, you need to re-engage the prefrontal cortex. Why am I going into fight or flight mode right now? It's because I feel threatened. Why do I feel threatened? It's because this reminds me of something. Is that thing that I'm reminded of actually happening right now? No, it isn't. And then suddenly, threat response comes down, heart stops beating so fast, adrenaline stops pumping, and you return to being able to think and feel rather than react. Now, this takes a lot of training. All right, I don't know how long I've been doing it, but I still ain't got all the bugs worked out. I can still fly into these raging kind of states and things of that nature. So it comes down to the point of self-therapy. And as we talked about before the show, everybody is an artist, right? In this movement anyway, almost all of us. And, well, the good ones anyway. And what happens is with an artist is my producer told me that all artists are broken people. Okay, and my theory is that the reason why artists create art is for two reasons. Number one is for the therapeutic nature of it, and the other is because of the inspiration that bore it hence. For example, if you're a musician, the chances are 100% that you've heard music before. and you've been inspired by it and you wanted to do it yourself. Same with filmmakers, talk radio show hosts, digital artists, painters, so on and so forth. They've seen stuff by other people that made them think, oh, that's cool, I want to be able to do that. And so that is probably one of the most important points about creating your art, and this comes down to the fact that you're a fifth dimensional being, right? In terms of the structure of reality, I mean, it's said through string theory that there's 11 different dimensions, but we can't identify or really measure anything above the fifth or fourth, really. But to just basically break that down, first dimensional existence is a dot. The second dimensional existence is a line. The third dimensional existence is a box. The fourth dimensional is the box moving through time. The fifth dimension is that same box, but it's beyond time and it's beyond space. It doesn't really exist until you spend your fourth dimensional time willing that thought into three-dimensional reality, because only there can other people see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it, and hence be inspired by it. The world does not benefit, and nobody benefits from thoughts and artistic works that somebody didn't spend any time manifesting into reality. Okay? You have to trigger inspiration, and the way that you do that is by taking inspiration from others, interpreting it your own way, and willing it into reality. Okay? This is what we're all here to do, and it's not about you, it's not about me, it's about all of us, baby. All right? Your job in life, as the Greeks said, is to plant a tree whose shade you shall never get to sit beneath. And the structure of reality in and of itself is quite... It's not complex, or rather, it's not complicated, but it is complex. One of these American radio show hosts asked me this one time, "So, Vinny, give it to us straight. Is the earth flat or is it round?" And I said, well, I think it's a holographic fractal that's being projected by collective consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. And they were like, whoa. So the basic structure here, if you look at, say, a hard drive on your computer, if I take a snapshot of the screen right now and put it onto a hard drive, then delete that picture's gone. But if I take a snapshot and embed it into a hologram, I try to delete that picture, the whole picture will still be there, it'll just be half the resolution now. I try to delete it again, same thing happens. Whole picture, still there, just half the resolution. That's part of the structure of reality, that nothing that is created can ever truly be destroyed. Like energy, it can only transform. Particles of wood become particles of smoke in a fire. It's all still there in some form, just not quite as resolute. That's the first structure. That's the hologram. The second layer is the fractal. It's things of scale, right? If you look inside your finger, you will find that it's made up of cells. Inside those cells are other cells. Inside those cells are other cells. Inside those cells are other cells. Infinitely down the chain, and as above, so below. We could be considered a cell on this planet, which is a cell in the galaxy, which is a cell in the universe, which is a cell in a much larger organism we don't have a word for yet. So if it's a holographic fractal, that means that everything that exists can never truly be forgotten, and everything that exists is either a smaller or larger version of something else. And this is where we get into what's projecting this reality is collective consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. So matter has consciousness. These guys did this experiment called the double slit experiment, where they had a proton gun that was going through these two metal slots and a little bit of aluminium foil on the bottom so that they could figure out when the cell explodes, what it actually does when it does, right? And the first part of the experiment, what they figured would happen is they'd just fire the gun, bang, and then it would hit the wall, bang, and then they'd figure out how the cell exploded, right? The photon. And it didn't. It went bang, and then it went through the slot, and then it changed. It went and it turned into a waveform. And they were like, whoa, that's interesting. Let's put a little camera right by the slot and let's see how that happens. And they ran the experiment again. Bang! Bang! And they were like, whoa! The photon changed its behavior because it was being watched. It's like an artist. It got stage fright. And if a photon has consciousness that can respond to stimuli, that means everything has consciousness, from photons to electrons to morons, all of them, maybe lesser or greater degrees, but it is consciousness nonetheless. And it's all responding to each other. It's all responding to observation and interaction. So that means everything you do, everything you say, and everything you look at has an effect on everything that sees it and hears it, right? And that helps to sculpt reality. We are all co-creating reality. My computer, my desk, the mouse, the microphone, and me and you and the audience are all co-creating this reality of this radio show currently in untold forms. And why do you do the show? Where is the subjectivity coming from? This is how you must look at yourself. You are, as David Icke says, a unique expression of the universe, okay? Without you, the universe couldn't achieve its full expression. That's why you're here. The universe felt like it needed you to exist for some reason. And it is your job to find out what that freaking reason is. Not to distract yourself for your entire life having fun. No! Work that is important isn't always fun. It can be. Sometimes. But that's what you make of it. Real work, traumatizing, it's frustrating, it's depressing, it's weakening. These are the sacrifices that must be made. And it's the same thing with your physical body as with your mind and with your soul. If your physical body doesn't go through pain and working out and things of that nature, what happens? The parts of your body that should be strong and powerful atrophy and die and collapse into entropy. And the same is true of your creative works. And that is why a lot of people who are creative in their heads but don't spend any time willing any of those creative projects into the universe are constantly watching other creative people's works and criticizing them and being resentful of them, because that artist is lying to themselves. They are falsely believing that other artists are just making stuff wrong, and by sitting there and stewing about it, you somehow make things better. Not true at all. A lot of artists are critical of themselves. Like, for example, I had a realization the other day that when somebody gives you a compliment, you're supposed to take it. You ever realize that? If somebody says, like, Vinny, you're the life of the party, man. The dancing you're doing is great. I was like, oh, we've got to talk to this guy. Instead of going, yeah, I know that I'm awesome. I know that I'm fantastic. I know I work really hard and stuff like that. You're not taking the compliment, are you? You're trying to justify it. You're trying to explain it away. And so thus, instead of just going, hand on heart, oh, thank you, the validation that comes from compliments doesn't actually process, right? You don't actually feel the validation. That's why you should never make excuses or explain something away or why something is if somebody gives you a compliment. Just take it and incorporate it into your soul and nourish yourself with the self-esteem that committing esteemed acts grants you.
There were so many things, but the waking up, the feelings and how you describe that is very accurate. I can attest to that myself. Everybody who's actually been there and didn't find any other rabbit holes to dive into and just kept on furthering themselves through that pathway of kind of where it takes you, not going into distractions, in my opinion, like religions of whatever religion, New Age, Christianity, whatever. That's the exact feeling. That's how you put it. It feels close to me, close to my heart, and I feel it. What do you think about? How do you get to this kind of? If you need some help in as you're waking up and you're feeling confused, how do you feel about mushrooms or similar?
There's a number of different elements to the uses of psilocybin, hallucinogens, cannabis, and all of these quote-unquote plant medicines, ayahuasca, DMT, etc., that have a significant effect on one's consciousness. And consciousness is key. Without it, you really don't have anything else. If you don't have consciousness, life is just really not worth living. And that's why a lot of people who are mentally ill, depressed, or whatever, dealing with a tremendous and tragic loss, they are in a limited state of consciousness, a consciousness ruled by fear. When you take massive doses of psilocybin or MDMA, on the other hand, the exact opposite resonant frequency to fear begins to emanate throughout your body. You feel love and you feel loved, and it begins to heal you of your trauma in two different ways. Number one, you could be doing it with somebody else or at a party or something of that nature, and it may help you feel the flow and may help you de-stress, and that glow of letting go, right, may last a significant period of time until you need to take your next trip. Now, on the other hand, you can do psilocybin by yourself, which I highly recommend if you know how to do it and you are in a safe environment and you are taking care of yourself and you're properly prepared and everything, so that you've got the whole day off, you've got everything you need to survive throughout the day, and you're just basically going to more or less just sit in bed in the dark and watch the carnival in your head. And what mushrooms do is they have a hive mind. The roots of mushrooms are able to communicate through the ground to each other. Now imagine you were a mushroom, if we personify it as a humanoid entity. Where do the mushrooms live? They live in dark, damp, cold places. What do you do in a dark, damp, cold place to make it better? you create warmth, and you create light. And this is the feeling and the sensation that people have when they ingest psilocybin magic mushrooms. They feel warm, and they feel lighter, and they yawn a lot, and tears come out of their eyes. I might call them sleepy tears. And I think that there's a possibility that what this is doing is this is relieving all the tension that's going through your body from all the darkness that you've been through, your dark thoughts, your dark experiences, things of that nature. And the mushrooms are trying to bring light to it. And this is where your thought process comes in as you begin to, I guess what could be loosely termed as talk to the mushroom and allow it to heal you, is you will have these profound thoughts, and you will not benefit from these thoughts whatsoever. Okay, I can say that pretty succinctly by saying there's an old Buddhist proverb: before enlightenment you must chop wood and carry water, and after enlightenment you must chop wood and carry water. So regardless of the profundity of your realization, whether it be the reason why you don't have a good relationship with your family is because they were being traumatized at the same time that you were, and that's why your family couldn't look out for you because they had to look out for themselves, and that's why you're not close. Or the damage that you've done to other people in your life that you've let down, and the tremendous guilt that you feel from it. These are important realizations, but the realization itself doesn't do anything. If you've had these realizations, no matter how profound they are, you then are obligated to work on them, to do something to change them. That way, that realization becomes something more than just a thought in your head, as I explained before with the manifestation of your thoughts into three-dimensional reality where they actually have value. So, yes, doing mushrooms and MDMA can therapeutize you, at least for a little while, if you're just doing them while partying and dancing the night away and having a good time, and you will establish that glow. But again, during those nights, you will often, because the mushroom has a hive mind, you'll often run into other people who are on mushrooms at the same time. It's quite extraordinary. And generally, those people will have things to teach you, lessons to tell you. And again, it's either you're getting these realizations and these thoughts while you're doing the mushrooms by yourself, or you're getting given them to other people, or by other people, kind of thing. And you have to work on those too. So it's about intent. If you take a trip, make sure that you have an intention. And indeed, this kind of goes for everything. If you are a smoker, put an intention behind that cigarette. You know, my intention behind this cigarette is to reduce my anxiety and increase my cognitive function so that I can get my work done in as clear, a succinct, and easy way as possible. You have the cigarette, and then it imbues you with those things. Much like how Christians bless their food, and they say a prayer, and afterwards they say Amen. There was a study conducted that measured the nutritional absorption of food by the human body by people who had blessed their food and those who hadn't. If your food is blessed, your body gets more nutrition from it. So you can get into that practice. I haven't kind of nailed that one yet. I'm just blessing basically everything that you do. You know, bless this coffee, whatever it may be. And I think it's about self-worth. All right. There are a lot of people with a lot of bullcrap out there, and you don't need them. All right? You don't need them in your life. They're negative people. If you, for
Toxic
example,
people.
yes, and there was another study conducted where they were looking at the effect on productivity of a negative person being added to a positive group. So they had 6 people in a group, and over the course of the study, they would average out their level of productivity of these 6 positive people working together on particular problems. Then they took out one of those positive people and added one negative person in. Somebody who argues, somebody who complains, somebody who doesn't get it and says that it's wrong, that kind of thing. It doesn't come up with...
Bad mouths other and, all that.
Yeah.
Bad mouthing and, everything that creates tensions.
Well, not just tensions. The effect on the productivity that was measured was minus 40%. All right? As in, you're only half as productive if you've only got one negative person on the team. Okay? Keep them the hell away from your operations. Don't let them in. They're going, no matter what good work they do, no matter what skills or talents they seem to have that might be useful, overall, they're going to bring the productivity down of everybody by nearly half on average. They are not worth it. And so these people need to get their shit together. Quit whinging, quit moaning, start creating, start thinking, start working, and stop bringing everybody down.
Well, one of the things that I picked up and kind of interpreted like this, that if you know something that is useful to other people and or should be known by other people, that you don't benefit for yourself in any way or form as of that moment, but it's good to do anyways, and that skill, you have that knowledge, you need to bring it out, so you need to perform. That's the artist. You have to create. So it doesn't matter if you know a lot of things, you have good tools in your head or whatever, you have good ideas in your head. If you don't bring them to the table and present them to other people, they don't matter at all. So you have to be brave enough to perform with the ideas you have. And even though they're not liked by others, but they are influential in general knowledge or consciousness, whatever. Because we're talking about this conspiracy. I don't even call it conspiracy theories, because I just call them conspiracies. Hidden knowledge. Let's put it hidden knowledge. And we have that. You need to put it out, or otherwise you're not helping. You're not doing anything, and you don't deserve any recognition either. It doesn't matter what you know if others don't know what you know.
Yeah.
That takes courage.
Yes, it does. And that's where what the word encourage means, to give courage. Right? And so it reminds me of the Milgram study, where they had somebody from Harvard University wearing a white lab coat telling people to electrocute this person on the other side of the smoked glass. They couldn't see the person, but every time that person got a question wrong, they'd electrocute them, up to the point of even death. They had actors playing the people being electrocuted, and they found that 90% of people, just because an authority figure told them to do it, would go to the point of killing another human being. And about 10% in the study, on the other hand, absolutely refuse. They say, no, I'm not doing it. All right? And this was quite interesting, because that is the most popular part of the study that people reference, is the submission to authority. But the second part of the study has been far less publicized. What they did is they took some of those 10% who successfully resisted authority, and they showed them doing it to the next people coming into the study. And an amazing reversal happens. About 100%, nearly 100% of people, when they see somebody else successfully resisting authority, they are encouraged and have the courage to do so themselves. That's why it's important to resist tyranny and authority wherever you see it in any way, because you never know whom you might encourage. And that is why the New World Order comes down so freaking hard on people like me, because of the threat that we pose. Not necessarily because we're one person who is a threat, but because we're one person who can manufacture many, many threats to their agenda via inspiration and encouragement.
Well, that 10% there, those 10% of people, those are leaders. And it's not that it's not the leadership of what we think, and it's definitely not the leadership that school teaches or the police have or armies have. Like it's not rank based, it's moral and ethical based leadership. That's the actual leadership, and that can create other leaders. That's what I'm big proponent of. To tell people, I tell them very harshly. I do it myself, and then I tell others, you have to do it too. You have the info. And then you hear all kind of explanations why they don't want to do it and why they don't do it. I just tell them, yeah, well, if you want to be a leader, because everybody wants to be something. If you want to be a leader, this is what you must do, young Padawan, whatever. This is what you have to do. And it's very simple. It just takes a little bit of courage, a little bit of balls. And once you do it once, you get encouraged to do it more. And then next time you do it more, it's easier, and you go further and further with the with the kind of, you show more and more of yourself to the universe, and you become more of your purpose. And your purpose is probably not for you, for yourself, but it's for everybody else. And that's the purpose of man in a way.
Yes.
Be helpful to others.
Well, yes and no, because Spider-Man was told that with great power comes great responsibility. And I think they've got that the wrong way round. I think from taking great responsibility comes great power. The best leaders, I believe an activist who once got the entire city council fired, including the mayor one time for exposing corruption, he told me that the people that you want as your leaders, and there's no such thing as necessarily bad leaders et al. Like not all leaders are bad. Leaders of men, Aragorn from Lord of the Rings or whatever. But Russell said to me that the leaders you want are the ones who have a track record of self-sacrifice for the good of others. Honor, loyalty, discipline, self-sacrifice, courage, valor. These are the qualities that used to be instilled as, I think, a requirement in the men of old, rather than today's society. And I believe throughout time, many reflections of the same dynamic has happened. This is what Mark Passio taught me about the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the true four horsemen of the apocalypse. Let's say you want to be a leader, you want to be courageous, you want to do something that changes the world and makes it a better place. There are four reasons why you won't do it: apathy, ignorance, laziness, and cowardice. All right? Every single time, I guarantee you, and I'm guilty of it too from time to time, you just don't want to do something because you either don't care, you're too freaking lazy, or you just don't want to know, right? That's the thing. That's what destroys societies. People not taking responsibility for reality and the shaping of it.
Do you think people listen to others enough in this world? Like we're talking about the pussyfooting around important stuff, and many people try to hush you because you don't belong, and that's what we all know who've spoken against the masses. People around you start pussyfooting around the subject, and they want to hush you. So
yes, it's one of the tactics of cult indoctrination, right? Cult indoctrination is very simple. If you're part of a culture, what is the first syllable of that? All right? What is your work culture? What is your school's culture? What is your nation's culture? All right? And how is it formed? How do you form a cult? And later on, as the cult has been gone around for generations, it ceases to be a cult, and it starts to become a religion, right? It's just the way things are. So, cult indoctrination. Let's say, for instance, you are a little child, and you've known nothing but mummy and daddy's love, and you've been able to play and be free, and then you get sent to a cult indoctrination institution. You are isolated from your family. You are traumatized by the process itself. You are sleep deprived because of the time that you have to go to that particular location. You have to endure repetitive, mindless tasks. There is a central authority figure who you must obey, a central doctrine that must be repeated, and getting to your point earlier about the people who don't want to listen and tell you to hush hush, the job of the cult member is to ostracize and henpeck anybody who speaks out against these important cult indoctrination standards. You can add on to that fluorescent lighting so you're not too awake and not too sleepy, so that your brain is not fully processing what it's seeing. Nutritional deprivation, that's why a lot of the places where you have to go for lunch from work don't sell highly nutritious food. This all, if you combine all these techniques, the brain can't help itself largely but submit or go into a fight response. All right? And some people attach to it. So everybody reacts differently. I had a very hard time in school. I got suspended 17 times from Waiheke Island High School. Okay? You could tell that I must have been suspended a lot because because of my mouth, and that's again going back to what I said earlier about what does telling the truth get you. You see, and what it gets you is what I call panhandling friendships. So panhandling is how you get gold out of a river, right? There's little nuggets somewhere in the mud, somewhere in the sand, and you get a whole plate full of this mud and sand, and you swirl it around with water to wash it off, and eventually you find those little bits of gold nuggets at the bottom. All right, that's basically what we're going through in life. We are processing and we are getting rid of the things that we don't want, that we don't need, and trying to find the things of value in life. Good friends, good family, and good creative outlets, and a good life. Not an easy life, not a fun life, a good life.
It's really hard for me to keep up because you're so way so good stuff. I'm just trying to keep up. Well, before we go to the next question, because it's my favorite question, because it's very open-ended, but I want to thank the friends I have, and they know who I am, and they let me be who I am, and they pretty much, almost all of them are after I understood that we're living in a fake society and everything. But these people are my rock as far as my friends go. But my wife, thank you, and my children, of course, my dog, and people like you, because you set the example for me to get even better at what I do, and we do the same thing. We just do it with different personalities. And what you're saying is resonating in me, and I'm not a new age hippie. But I just used to resonate to kind of
Well,
interpret my feelings to this discussion. Yeah.
Well, it's a scientific thing, and I recognise this when, who was it? Steve Hughes, whom I consider to be the world's greatest living comedian after the deaths of Bruce Hicks and Carlin, of course. He was... Like my mate Mike, for example, he was my guitarist for many years, and he's got a great sense of humour like me, and we always have a good time together. And he told me that when Steve was doing his set, he actually didn't stop laughing the whole time, right? Like, it was just so good. And I... talked to Steve afterwards at the Comedy Classic in Auckland here, and we had this discussion about it. And number one, first thing I noted was that he is embedding a carrier signal in his words, right? Like a resonant frequency. As Tesla said, everything is frequency. So let's say frequency number 1 is fear, frequency number 2 is love, or frequency number 3, whatever. And so he's able to embed in his words the exact frequency, and it embeds into your mind and you interpret it. So you're not actually listening to the words. You are seeing them and feeling them and being affected by them by the resonant frequency that's embedded within it. This is why words are so important. The Buddha said that the world began with a sound, a sound, Om, right? And the Christians say that it began with a word, okay? Because these things that are expressed auditorily can affect the resonant frequency of the people who are listening to it. There's, for example, if you're a musician, there's an ancient instrument tuning clockwork thing that you can use called Yar's musical scale, and it is kind of like an embedded clockwork spiral of all the different frequencies that can be produced by instruments, and it lines up what those frequencies are with what feeling is associated with that frequency. So if you tune your instrument correctly, you can deliberately make someone feel the exact emotion that you want them to. That's how important music and words are. Music activates, unlike anything else that's yet been discovered, activates all areas of the brain simultaneously. Dance operates all areas of the body simultaneously. You see, this is what we call flow, where we get a resonance. So if you've ever been to a dance festival or whatever, it depends how good you are or whatever, but you can surrender to that flow, and you can allow your brain to be stimulated in all things and be taken on these little emotional highs and lows and journeys of it, and your body responds accordingly with the flow of the music as you become one with it. And in so doing, you don't feel quite so alone. And as I said before about the atrophy of your muscles and the atrophy of the parts of your brain and things of that nature, they found that people who go to music festivals regularly experience significantly less depression than the rest of the population. I think this is because they are exercising their brain and their body completely, and thus makes it stronger and more capable of dealing with stress and depressing issues.
I didn't know this. I've always been kind of, okay, here we come. I have my prejudices. So I've always been thinking that I've done some dancing, never done any singing, but I've some dancing done and listening to music and all that. I was performing on stage in Mallorca, Spain in 2001 as a hotel entertainer. I liked it a lot. But nowadays I've been just the dancing and listening to some kind of, okay, here we go. This is my apology to all the New Agers. I didn't understand this, but now I do more. So I don't consider it as idiotic as I had before. So this is my apology to you. And maybe there's a little new ager coming out of me, but I try to keep it real and as me.
Well,
So
New Agers suffer from mental illness, I believe, because they think that they only live in the higher realm and they forget the three-dimensional. You see? That's mentally ill. If you think you only live in the 3D world, that's mentally ill, all right? Non-mental illness, if there is such a thing, is being able to accept and operate effectively within both realms simultaneously. All right? Like, I may be very tired right now, but I've got to do this work and this inspiration is coming, so I am going to forego my 3D needs in order to manifest my 5D thoughts, right? This is two things working congruent. I feel very angry at this person, but I realize that they were being a dick to me because they just broke up with their girlfriend, they just got kicked out of their house, and they just got their business shut down, and they found out that they've got liver problems, and so they were a little bit grumpy that day with me, so I'm going to forgive them. You see, just understanding how things affect people and beginning to accept them is really key. And I think I went to a festival called Resolution one time, and a lot of people said to me the exact same thing, which I thought was interesting, so I committed it to memory. You do you. All right? There's an old saying that the reason why I'm a libertarian is because I don't know what's best for everybody else.
yeah, you do you. That's good. I second that. And let others do you and them, and you do you.
Yeah.
Simple.
I mean, it is very nice if she's beautiful and she is doing you. But anyway, go ahead.
Let's go from, because this was kind of the part I wanted people to also know about you, that you have that depth. You can explain things that are, you have to be long time, how do you say, woken to these kind of things, and you can explain it like this. Like you said in the beginning, you have to then understand it completely to explain it. So this is the part you did that. Let's now go to the common threats that we are facing, and I would like to talk about the Wi-Fi radiation and perhaps the 5G. So let's jump from kind of the mind to the reality. And
okay, all right. Just before we do, the reason why I'm able to explain things so succinctly is for two reasons. Primarily, practice. I've been a talk radio show host for 16 years, interviewing the best of the best minds, and the second reason is called the Pareto distribution. All right, commonly known as the 80-20 rule. You'll notice that you wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time. That 20% of people do 80% of the work. That, and more importantly, 20% of the information contains 80% of the enlightenment. So if you have spent your 20s and your 30s, when you're capable of thinking the most creative ideas, when you've got the most energy, when you've still got your health, as I did. Most people get into talk radio in their 40s and in their 50s, right? I got into it in my early 20s. And because I have interviewed so many people who are so much wiser and have done all the work, they are able to give me the enlightenment in a very, very succinct, very, very fast fashion. For example, how long does it take you to read a book versus having a 2-hour conversation with the author? What will the author tell you that is important, and what will the book tell you that gives context, most of which you could probably forget about so long as you've gotten the point? And because you're able to interpret things, and I have lots of contradictory people on my show, people who disagree about different things and what have you, usually not together. Occasionally we've had debates and so on and so forth, but you get to see how things compare. Like, really, and you get to ask questions and you get to interact and you get to process. And because everybody sees one little piece of the puzzle, like say there's 360 degrees in a circle, and maybe you understand 1 degree, which is false flag terrorism, or another 1 degree, which is controlled demolition of the Twin Towers on 9/11, or another degree, like the effect on the human body and mind of cellular Wi-Fi radiation and things of that nature. There's still 300 odd topics plus that you still have no awareness of, let alone a working awareness. So if you have people on your show that have a working awareness of each of these points, you can start to get a much broader perspective to be able to see where the interactions are, how things work together, and this allows you to become enlightened via your understanding and your listening and interpretation to these things. As a talk radio show host, it's maybe about 30% about talking. All right. The other 66% plus is about listening. You've got 2 ears, 1 mouth for a freaking reason. Now, when we talk about Wi-Fi, just to follow on from your point there, sorry, there was a bit of a long-winded way of explaining it. Everybody has got Wi-Fi around them pretty much all the time now. If you don't have Wi-Fi in your home because you've got it wired, like I do, as soon as you walk out on the street, or even while you're sitting in your home, your cell phone might be on, you know? And my phone is on flight mode at the moment. My phone is on flight mode a lot of the time. And for very good reason, because there's been some studies about electrosensitivity. There's only about 3% of the population that really suffer from this known condition. So, for example, I was at a council meeting regarding 5G and the opening of that in New Zealand. And I got there quite a bit early, and one of the councillors was there. He said, you know, when somebody first opens their mouth, you can tell they're a dick and a moron, right?
Yeah.
This guy, it was just, you just had to be there. Anyway, he said to me, oh, what do you think about this G5 thing? And I go, well, I don't know what I think about the G5 thing, but I know what I think about the 5G thing. And he goes, oh, you're a smart ass, are you? And I go, well, I find it infinitely more useful than being a dumbass.
Good comeback.
And I come up to him and just tap him on the shoulder. It's like, sorry, mate, talk radio show host with 10 years experience. You're ill-prepared for this fight.
That's well. So, yeah, go ahead.
So we took a picture of everybody that came to that meeting. All these anti-5G people. It was a very, very well attended meeting, and we got everybody in a big group afterwards, and took a picture of them. And I go, okay, everybody say surveillance, surveillance. And when you do that, everybody laughs, kind of thing, and then you take the shot. So you get a genuine response of actual joy, and you can see it in their faces and stuff. And then afterwards, and this is coming back into electrosensitivity, there was a lady at the Thai restaurant afterwards, who was one of the 5G people, who was electrosensitive. And I just filmed this meeting, and I was furiously trying to upload it, so I turned on my data, and she's sitting next to me. Within, I think, maybe 2 seconds, you could see that she was starting to get a headache. She like starts grabbing her head and going, oh, did you just turn your cell phone on? Whoa. There's cell phones and Wi-Fi and broadcast towers and stuff like that everywhere. Imagine if any time you got exposed to any of the stuff that was anywhere, you started to shut down and your body went into a stress response, right? And there was a study conducted on electrosensitive versus non-electrosensitive. And they didn't measure the symptoms, because obviously the electrosensitive people had symptoms and the non-electrosensitive people didn't. They measured the cells, okay? They measured what their blood cells were doing when exposed to this radiation. And the electrosensitive and the non-electrosensitive people's cells react identically to being exposed to radiation. So whether or not you can feel it, you are being affected by it on a cellular level. And there's a significant amount of... you know how everybody's talking about, oh, ADHD is a problem, oh, depression's a problem, oh, suicide's a problem, oh, this, that, and the other are a problem. Okay, well, have you looked at what the known and measurable side effects of long-term and short-term exposure to Wi-Fi are? ADHD, depression, insomnia, cancer, or joint pain, so on and so forth. I think there's close to like 180 or something like that, a ridiculous amount of known side effects to the exposure of radiation. All right, this, whether it's nuclear radiation, Wi-Fi radiation, doesn't matter. It'll just have a symptom associated with it, and that's why mankind is in an epidemic of health problems at the moment. That people don't know what's causing it because they don't all have the exact same health problem. All right, so it becomes difficult to go, oh, what caused this? You know, how about what's causing everything? Did you think about that, bro? Eh? Where's your peer review articles now, huh? Because there was another article released that showed that a review of 10,000 peer-reviewed articles from the scientific establishment that were all, I repeat, all proven to be complete frauds. All right? So the authorities who are telling you what is scientific fact and what isn't are liars and cheats and thieves. All right? That's who you're getting your solid information from? And you're wondering why people are committing suicide and dropping like flies from cancer? Why are you wondering this? It's not a mystery. They exposed you to a whole bunch of crap. And as soon as you became suspicious that some kind of the crap that you were exposed to was having some kind of effect on you and started asking questions, they come up with all this scientific evidence and gobbledygook which you don't fully understand, which placates you and confuses you and stops you from recognizing the simple obviousness of the truth. That you are livestock on the global farm, and you are not free if you do not have your health, and you do not have your health if you're not free, right? That's why the two are intimately linked. That was the creation of Health Freedom New Zealand by a lovely woman named Nicola Grace back during the swine flu pandemic in 2008, around about the time I started doing my alternative media thing. She said that your health and your freedom are intimately connected because without your health, you can't enjoy your freedom, and without your freedom, you can't enjoy your health.
Very well put. I knew it's going to go like that. So that's why, because the Wi-Fi and the 5G are totally apparently unrelated, but they all are related. They're all related, and people want to separate these things from the consciousness or whatever we talked about before, but they all go together.
Yes, it's like a small hillbilly town. They're all related.
Yeah. So you have, well, me being Finnish, even though lived here in Mexico for 2.5 years now, but we had this prime murderer. She was a beautiful lady. We're going to your prime murderer that you had before. I don't know the current one, but this one is now hanging around with. And she was kind of like a beautiful but very cold-hearted bitch. The ex-prime minister and all of these, you know. So, but they were many times compared, these two bitches together. So your Jacinda Ardern, I remember I think it was your episode many years back when you were like going through her family background. So this also is connected because let me explain it a little bit to people. It's because most of these politicians that are put in power are somehow connected to the same families or whatever, and they have. So your Jacinda Ardern, you know her family background, you can remember it still, like to connect the dots for people to stop fucking voting. It doesn't help. You need to understand what these people are. So can you explain that?
Well, voting helps as much as not voting. It doesn't. All right. What's problematic is that I'm an anarchist, all right? Coming from the Latin an, meaning against, and archon, meaning controllers. I'm against having slaves for myself, and I'm against having a master. I don't like it. I don't like somebody being able to tell me what to do and me not being able to say no by the dictates of my own conscience. And what government means in Latin, coming from the word governe, meaning to control, and mente, meaning the mind. Mind control. All right? So if you ever have a conversation and say, I believe we need a government, you believe you need mind control, that you need somebody to control your mind because you can't do it yourself, huh? You don't strike that as being perhaps a little, I don't know, irresponsible! You freaking cunt! You just don't get it! You just don't get it. You have to restrain yourself sometimes when you're talking with these people who don't know what reality is. Okay? They just don't know because they're too freaking ignorant and they don't want to know. However, you can tell them things, as David Icke told me, things they cannot unhear. All right? I call it the information grenade. You pull the pin, you chuck it in, and it blows up in their face later. There was a conversation I had with Dr. Rima Labo, and she enlightened me as to the rule of 7. Statistically speaking, and they found this in advertising as well, that it takes 7 times hearing the exact same thing before you'll consider changing your mind on a particular subject. Right? So that means if you were the first person to say 9/11 is an inside job, you will be told, F off, you're a conspiracy theorist. And if you are the second person to come across this one from a second different time, from a second different social circle, saying the exact same thing to them, they'll say the exact same thing back to you. F off, you're a conspiracy theorist. And this can feel very discouraging until you realize that maybe one day the 7th person from a 7th different time in their life, from a 7th different social circle, will tell the exact same thing to them, and they're willing to change their mind now. Don't take any emotional investment or responsibility in whether or not people believe you. Just tell them something and then walk away. It's not your responsibility to, quote-unquote, wake people up. You know, that may sound ironic coming from me, and here's what I mean by that. You didn't wake up because I told you. You didn't wake up because Alex Jones told you. You woke up because you did the work yourself. You did the research. You listened to podcasts. You watched documentaries. You looked and you discussed, you interviewed, you did all this work in order to obtain your understanding, and nobody forced you to do it. I wasn't standing behind you with a gun to your head. Watch Terror Storm by Alex Jones, or I'm gonna kill you! No, it didn't happen that way. You got curious, and you wouldn't satiate your curiosity by laxing to your apathy, by giving in to your ignorance, by submitting to your cowardice. Did you? And that is on you. That means that you deserve the credit. I have a lot of people who have inspired to do radio shows of their own, and they try to credit me with the person who inspired them to do it, for creating their show and stuff like that. And while I may have been the inspiration, while I may have said on my show many times, start your own show. It's the last days of war, gentlemen. Get it done, because this is the last chance you're ever going to have to do it, to make a difference. And that has inspired people to do it. But they are the ones who do the work, and they are the ones who deserve the credit. Now on to Jacinda Ardern. believe she was elected in 2017, I think, and then a couple of years after that we had what was known as what I call the Christchurch Mosque Massacre, where an alleged gunman allegedly entered a mosque and allegedly shot people. I say allegedly because it's illegal to investigate it. Okay? You can go to jail in New Zealand for 10 to 14 years for so much as engaging in journalism. Could you imagine after 9/11
that sounds like something that happened, so-called happened during the Second World War. Okay, but let's stick to that.
I mean, could you imagine if after 9/11 it would become illegal and punishable by prison if you shared footage or watched footage of the towers coming down? Could you imagine if that was illegal? All right, could you imagine if it was illegal to make a documentary like Jason Bermas's Loose Change? All right, you see? That's how tyrannical New Zealand is, because tyrannical is a catch-all term for what we call in New Zealand an elected dictatorship. Okay? You know how there's branches of office, branches of government, people who have to do checks and balances, so on and so forth, say in the United States. In New Zealand, no. No, we don't have that. What we have is a Prime Minister's office that can draft and pass something like the COVID-19 Response Act, which made it illegal to stand within 2 meters of another person. I've got a conviction to prove it. All right, made various other sweeping powers that forced used police to force people off of Parliament lawns who had a legitimate protest, you know, that kind of thing. All of that stuff was passed at 4 o'clock in the morning, all right, with almost nobody there and no debate, and they just passed the most draconian legislation that this country has ever existed. All right, Nazi Germany wishes they had that kind of power. So with Jacinda, you talk about how people get into these positions of power. And in the 1950s, a American broadcast from the American Broadcasting Corporation talked about the formation of the Illuminati and how they operate in our current society. What they do is they find wealthy, powerful, influential families, and they recruit them to be part of the genocidal agenda against mankind. They train them overseas in internationalist organizations, globalism, whatever ism it happens to be called at the time, or a scientific dictatorship, if you really want to put a very specific moniker on it that is incredibly accurate. They train them in scientific technocracy techniques, and then they come back to their home countries, they get elected, and then they implement the technocratic globalist agenda. Right? Jacinda Ardern, whose father is the High Commissioner to a small island nation of Niue. He's a New Zealander, and he was a police member for over 40 years. And Jacinda herself was given a Freemason scholarship to go to Waikato University, where she studied, and listen closely now, political science, as in there's a science behind politics and how to manipulate people, and public relations, which is how you lie to those people in order to convince them to do what you want to do without them knowing you're doing it. Okay? That's what she was trained in. That's what she's qualified in. And then it got even worse. She went to work for the famous Tony Blair. That's Tony Blair is the correct pronunciation. I said Blair deliberately. She worked underneath him for the Better Business Bureau in Europe. What the Better Business Bureau's job was to do is to strangle small businesses with red tape and cut red tape for big businesses and figure out how to do it. Then she returned to New Zealand and she began to get mentored by Phil Goff, who is a member of Parliamentarians for Global Action. What Parliamentarians for Global Action is a global think tank full of elected representatives from democratic nations who pay by credit card in order to become a member of this organization, where they are then flown around the world to continue their internationalist training. She was trained by Phil Goff, who was a member of this organization. Then she was mentored by David Shearer, who was formerly a member of the UN and is also a member of Parliamentarians for Global Action. Then she was mentored by the former Prime Minister Helen Clark, who is not only a member of Parliamentarians for Global Action, but also the Club de Madrid, where instead of the difference between those two organizations is one, you have to be an elected representative, and the other, you have to be an actual elected leader of a country in order to get into the Club de Madrid. And again, you have to pay by credit card, all right? $10,000, I think it is. And they have a lot of these roundtable groups that run New Zealand, which I'll get into in just a moment. If you remind me, I'm going to just put a note down here to explain those roundtable groups. So, roundtable, there we are. The idea behind Jacinda Ardern was quote-unquote change, all right? Not the kind of change that homeless people beg for, but the kind of change that makes you one of the homeless people that needs to beg, all right? The interpretation behind her reign would be how to make being a tyrant with a boot on your face sound very nice and very kind and quite pleasant, really, by speaking to you with this big smile. She'd been likened to a horse, of course, because of the size of her teeth. But this is not the part of the thing we want to do. So her reign, we knew all of this stuff about her before she even got elected. Myself and fellow journalist Ben Vidgen from Postman Productions collaborated on an entire series breaking down not just Jacinda Ardern and her past and the party of Labour and their past, but also almost every other political party that we had time to go through. All right? And we did that because once you know the history of any single political party in this country, their track record, who's a part of it, what groups they belong to, who mentored them, if you trust them, that is foolish, if not evil, right? There's a lot of people who are guilty of unintentional evil, and despite the fact that the Christchurch mosque massacre is illegal to investigate, there's a lot of things that are public domain knowledge that you can investigate. For example, when she took the guns 2 weeks after that incident, she was just like, okay, everybody, we had a shooting, now we had to take all your guns. Because obviously, you know, private citizens having guns in a country that has, on average, maybe one murder a year, maybe two if it's a very busy year, maybe zero if it's a slow year. That's how many murders by firearms that we have in New Zealand. Suddenly firearms are a big problem, we need to get rid of them all. And then what happens when you ban the possession of firearms by law-abiding citizens? The criminals keep theirs, and the people who they prey upon have no defense now. And so, just like in Chicago when they banned handguns, just like in New York when they banned handguns, just like in Washington, D.C., where they banned handguns, immediately after the legislation has been passed, murder rates start shooting up, so to speak. Right? And that's exactly what's happened in New Zealand. We've got, like, I don't know, something like a between a 400% and 800% increase in gun crime since banning guns. All right? So And what this does is it gives them justification to arm the police. All right? Arm the police, policing an unarmed population. Whose rules do you think are going to be followed now? The people's? Who've got no means of defending themselves against a tyrannical government? You know, this is why the United States has the Second Amendment. All right? The reason why you're not allowed an AR-15 assault rifle or whatever the hell is because, oh, it's got too many bullets. You don't need that for just defending your home against one person. It's like, no, you don't. You need it for defending your home against an entire team of armed murderers who wear uniforms and say that they're there to help you. That's what you need those guns for, ladies and gentlemen. However, moving on from that, behind Jacinda Ardern in a picture was a book, a very important book, which if you don't have an awareness of, you probably should. It was called Quiet Weapons for Silent Wars. That was on her bookshelf. And it details a lot of exotic technologies that can affect the mind and can affect people's bodies. Even 5G, for example, is a weaponized platform. And as I told you with the frequencies before, you can make people interpret certain frequencies using music or whatever. These are mind control weapons that can make you interpret frequencies. Okay? You want everybody in a particular area, let's say one suburb, Orange County or something like that. You want everybody in that particular county, or even one street of people specifically, or even one home specifically, or even one individual specifically. You can tune the frequency and make them commit suicide, or send them into a massive depression, or make them have a psychotic meltdown, or something of that nature. This is crowd control weaponry. And as you can see behind me on the picture, I apologise for the radio listeners, we have a picture of the New Zealand police crushing the protest that New Zealand has held against the mandated jibby jabs. All right? And that is something everybody needs to be aware of. I got arrested myself, along with Billy Te Kahika, who was previously voted the third most popular choice for Prime Minister in New Zealand. He came out.
Really?
He came out speaking against communism. He came out speaking against the UN. He came out speaking against fluoride, chemtrails, digital weapons, Wi-Fi, manipulation, media control. I was very suspicious of this guy, okay? Because if anybody new comes on the scene, because I know about the 360 degrees of all the different topics and how they line in and things of that nature, I know that there's a very distinct possibility that although this person may tell me a few things that I want to hear, that they may not have the whole picture on the other things as I do, as I've been taught by my mentors and my betters. And so I did this investigation, or rather this interview with Billy, and I asked him every single question I possibly could about every single conspiracy that I knew to exist that was affecting New Zealand at the time. And that was a test. And every single question I asked, there was a right response and an incorrect response. And he gave the right response every single time I asked a question. It was unbelievable. Never had a conversation like that in my life. And Billy and I continue to collaborate this day. And we are working on a new documentary called River of Lies 2, Electric Boogaloo. No, I'm kidding. It's called the vaccine tragedy. Not.
Is that correct?
No.
Is that correct?
Take out the L and put in a K.
Okay.
It's Billy Te Kahika, not Billy Te Kahila. Although he actually might get into alternative healing practices or something of that nature, and then he can become known as Billy Te Kahila. He may during the autumn he can practice Reiki. Because of all the leaves you see, and with that. Jacinda Ardern is what you would consider a groomed politician. Okay, I had this realization because I'm a big movie buff. You know, I can quote, I can remember. Movies are my jam. You know, love them, absolutely love them, and I like the makings of them too. And what you find when you look through somebody's filmography, it's like a biography, but just of all their films and television work, and you see that there is a start. They started making films here, they improved over here, and then they became a big success over here, and so on and so forth. So that means that there's a track record, right? And I think the same is true for every person in every profession, including the politician. They have a track record. They didn't just appear. They were groomed for this. Okay, and this is the reason why most of us quote-unquote conspiracy theorists, which is, of course, as I mentioned in the clip that we played before, a person who absolutely believes that there's a powerful group of individuals who have a lot of influence, who use that influence to maintain and control and maintain and expand their powers. All right, that's a conspiracy theorist. That's pretty logical. And a coincidence theorist are the people who believe that everything happens by accident and there's no such thing as deceit. And at some point in the 20th century, the evil people of the world just goes, you know, we've got enough money and power. Let's just let everybody be free now. You know, we're done. We're done scheming. You know, it's just, you know, insanity. Right now, the problem with conspiracy theorists and people with conscience alike is if you're not a psychopath, you wouldn't ever dare do the things that a psychopath would do, and they'd do it without even thinking about it. Because you've got something called guilt. You've got something called remorse. You've got something called morals. And because they don't have that, and because those things define how you think, and how you control your actions and why, that's why the actions of psychopathic individuals are completely unpredictable. All right? I remember one time I was talking with a listener and he was talking to me about his sister who's a psychopath. And they were having a family dinner, and before the dinner started, he just came up to her nicely because, as psychopaths do, they just kind of wind you up and get a reaction out of you, and they're very violent and nasty kind of thing. So he just sort of quietly, nicely to her and said to her, could we just have a nice dinner and just be cool with each other? What did she do? What was her reaction? She went to the broom closet, got out the broom, and then busted it over his head. You wouldn't see that coming, would you? Okay? That is why they're so freaking dangerous. The ancients tried to tell us about demons. They tried to tell us about fictional entities like vampires, werewolves, and monsters and things of that nature because they were trying to explain to an ignorant, uneducated mass of people that there is true evil in this world and that it has rules. Rules of what it wants, and rules of how to keep it out of your life, and rules of how to destroy it. Okay? If you think about the metaphor of a vampire as a psychopath, it's said that you need to invite a vampire in. Okay? Unless you say yes to them, they can't get in. They say that a vampire will die if exposed to the light. What do psychopaths fear above all? Being exposed. You see? What do werewolves do? They change their shape. You can see that psychopaths can imitate other people and change how they appear and change their names and things of that nature. If your psychopath changes their name by deed poll, for instance, and you go up and you tell them about something they did previously under another name, they actually have no recognition of that. They go, no, that was somebody else. Right? Creepy. Scary. This is what we're up against. People don't know how dangerous it is doing what I'm doing, doing what you're doing. We are stoking the fires of change, and that means we will inevitably be burned and scorched and charred by ways we could never predict. But as Cliff Hyde told me, I was on he's from HuffPassHuman.com. He created the WebBot program, which was able to predict future events by surreptitiously monitoring the general words that people were using in their online blogs and content across the whole world. He was able to predict with some accuracy the future. And I told him that humanity's spirit is like a spring. Now, what happens when you push down a spring? It resists you. What happens when you push it all the way down? It resists you even the more. And then what happens when you let go for even 1 second? It pops back up again. That's what humanity's spirit's like, I told him. And he said, no, Vinny. Use an organic example. Humanity's spirit is like a water spring. Now, what happens when you try to push down water that is bursting its way through the surface? It starts burrowing sideways, through sand, through mud, and through stone, and begins to burst through to the surface from places you could not predict or comprehend. That is what humanity's spirit is like, Vinny. And I said, touche.
Well said. Well said. This is well, I wouldn't have anything better to ask. What you go with is just great. About that Prime Minister of Finland, that ex-Prime Minister wasn't my Prime Minister or actually Finnish people's, but the Finnish governmentes. Do you know where she works at now?
World Economic Forum?
For Tony Blair's. So she went there right after. Funny how that goes. Okay.
Yeah, they say you can't make this shit up, right? Yeah. And I remember actually I was reading an article on Twitter about this gay guy who became the I think the advertising chairman of Jaguar, the British car manufacturer, and he made these incredibly woke, incredibly distasteful advertising that drew a lot of flack for the company, and drew a lot of criticism upon him as well, and the go woke, go broke tactics. And I think it was like, I read actually a little bit further into this and found out that he and his gay partner, they have a pet. So it's two guys with a pet, and it's a breed of dog called a cockpoo. Two gay guys and a cockpoo. You can't make that shit up.
Cockpoo.
I didn't make the rules, bro. I didn't make the rules.
Hey, let's promote you a little bit. Let's promote your stuff. Where people can find you. How? Well, first of all, where they can find you, your stuff. You have over 6,000 interviews. You have extensive record of shows. You're a director of movies, I think. You're a musician. You should promote your stuff a little bit as far as we can use my channel for it. So just promote. I'm just on your merchandise stuff here, but you have your site.
If we go to the homepage there, that might be a little bit better for people. Verifying you're human. Verifying you're a human. This may take a few seconds. It's just like, isn't it interesting that we allow robots to verify whether or not we're human? You know, again, you can't.
Yeah. Well, it's now Okay, let's go. All right.
So this is the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. That's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. And this website was helped out by my man from KiwiRadio.nz, Mr. Ralphie, and he helped me to have a good time last night. A fantastic little trance gig that I went to at his request. And you can listen to the Vinny Eastwood Show on a number of different places if you scroll down to see where it goes live, and there's those little numbers there. There is Twitch and Ground Zero Radio and YouTube and Facebook and Rumble and BitChute and Odyssey and Twitter and what are they called? Instagram and Minds.com and that kind of thing. And all those links are available there on the homepage under the little Listen Live section where you have the little logo of Ground Zero Radio and the little numbers below it. And basically you can listen to this stuff all the time. You can download it, you can watch it for free, and I guess there's two modes of doing things, and I learned about that during communication studies at Otago University in 2003, is the two different approaches to broadcasting. There is the American model and the British model. The British model taxes everybody by force and gives that money to create content, TV shows, news, etc., BBC. And the American model breaks up all that content that they make and sells space on their broadcasting to advertisers so that they can recoup enough money from their product to be able to continue to make more products. Now, those are the two main models of broadcast financing. There is a third, however, that James Corbett enlightened me to. He didn't create it, but nevertheless he pointed a finger at it better than anybody else, as James Corbett often does. God, he's so good. Called the peer-to-peer economy, where instead of me taking all the risk, making a product, spending all my money on it, and then going out and selling it for a profit and then reinvesting that profit in order to make more profit, I will instead make a product, take all the risk, and give it away for free. And then, if people like the product and want to see more of it being produced, they will donate $300 a month, or $10 a week, or $1 a day. It doesn't matter. Every little thing helps to contribute to the overall running of the show. And I've been running for 16 years on this model, which is longer than any alternative media outlet in New Zealand by far. By far. Like, I've been around for at least a decade longer than any of these new media channels that propped up under the reign of Jacinda. Okay, I'd been operating under this, I think, what would I say if the world wasn't what I wanted it to be? I would say that's not fair, that kind of thing. Let's do something about it. And so that's what I did. I did not see any alternative media in New Zealand at the time when I began, and I was a big, big fan and listener to Alex Jones. I'm not anymore. Those are reasons behind the way he operates, which are very, very different to the way that I operate. But he's much more successful than I will probably ever be, and good luck to him. Best of luck to him. But I just noticed that New Zealand didn't have any alternative media, and so I endeavoured to become it, and then I did. And then I got demonetized after the Christchurch mosque massacre, then deplatformed after COVID, and arrested during COVID, and financially ruined as a result of that court case, as well as being banned from accessing the internet as part of my bail conditions. So what that meant was I disappeared in almost every conceivable way, and almost nobody knows that I'm broadcasting nowadays that used to listen to me. You know, I had 65,000 subscribers, 6,500 videos, over 20,000 hours of published content that took me more than a decade to produce on YouTube, and that's gone. So, wonderfully, during my arrest, I have to give some special props now to all the people who've helped me. Ralphie's helped me with my website. Benny Max helped me with the green screen. DK has helped me with the mods on the thing. So has Alan Mosdale. But in terms of the archives of the Vinny Eastwood show, if you go to latest, you will see that latest dates back to 2016. Julia went through and downloaded all of the things, okay? All of my old content that I'd uploaded to Odyssey and BitChute and things of that nature, and she re-uploaded them and archived them for me at the time. So it was like nearly 8 years of content out of 16 that she archived for me, donating her time. I am unbelievably grateful to that. So that it means that a lot of the knowledge from people that I've interviewed on the show who are now not with us anymore is still there to a large degree, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. But unfortunately, barely anybody's seen those re-uploaded versions of the older broadcast, because people are usually just interested in what's happening now, what's being released, and what's live, that kind of thing. But I would implore everybody to go through and have a look. You see all these terms that are coming up on the side, all these terms, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and so on and so forth. This scrolls for a long time. Everything from aliens to zoology, you know. And so if you want to know anything about anything, if you want to listen to almost anybody kind of thing, I've done practically everything. All right, but of course there's things that I haven't done, and of course there's subjects that I haven't covered just because I haven't gotten around to it yet. But at the end of the day, there is so much information there to be interpreted and enjoyed from all these people that I've had on the show over the many years that I've been going, and that knowledge is still there. Whatever curiosity that you have, whatever it is that strikes your mood about what you want to interpret, what you want to listen to, what you want to learn from, it is all there on that page for latest on the Vinny Eastwood show. Almost any name or topic that you can really think of, and that is up there for free, so that mankind at least has an option to go and listen to a show where there's only two rules. Be yourself, because if you're being yourself, you'll relax, and that relaxes the audience. And most importantly, the rule that Danny Romero from AmericanFreedomRadio.com, who gave me my first radio gig, have fun. Because if you're having fun, the audience will too.
Yeah. I was guessing it's gonna be like a mind-blowing episode. It's been over the top. I'm very happy what you brought, and I wish people would go and see your stuff, support you as well. There's a lot of people I'm behind to support, but you are definitely one of them. And for a young man, you're like 10 years younger than me. I was born 76. I'm 48. You you seriously have knowledge more than me, and I'm not ignorant. I can tell you that. But you can explain the things like anybody who is a good explainer.
Well, as you
so I
said,
appreciate.
and thank you for that, bro. It really means a lot. And as I said on the other show, it said that everybody's got a talent, but that's not true. Some people don't have a talent, and some people have got two.
Well, I'm always saying to everybody, I don't have any talents, but I'll go with that. I want to be good at everything, so maybe that's my talent.
Yeah, I mean, whereas I believe that I've got like 8 talents or something like that. So there's probably 7 guys out there who are fucking useless, just. you have a very quick kind of intelligence also, so that's also a really good talent. So you can just make things up from thin air. It's good. And I'm not talking about what we talked about before, like the serious shit, but you can make joke and you can read the room very easily. I can tell you that, and that, and I will be looking into your stuff more, and I'm gonna be focusing on going through your research. May I recommend? I think the best show that I ever did. If you want to bring up that screen again, search David Icke Mark Passio on my website, on the search bar on the homepage. David Icke Mark Passio. I got David Icke and Mark Passio together on the same show. If you go to the homepage and then click on search in that little bar there next to my head, and you go Mark Passio. Oh my God! It was a total Freudian slip there. You almost spelled out Dark Passio.
No, I like Mark Passio. Like this.
Yeah, that's right. And then press enter there, and you should come up with an archive called Courage and Consciousness. David Icke and Mark Passio on the Vinny Eastwood Show. If you click on that link there, you'll go through to the archive. That, I think, out of the so far 16 years of my career, was probably the best show I've done to this date. Those two guys, you get even one of those guys on your show, it's going to be a good show. You get both of them and me, it's just magic. All right, and I don't mean to toot my own trumpet, but I am the bugle boy from a company too. What?
I like a good challenge with you 3 on it, so even my ego would be suppressed a little bit, so that would be good.
Well, it's quite funny actually, because I think David, I got arrested and banned from the internet, right? And that meant that the show that I'd scheduled with David like 6 months earlier couldn't go ahead, because obviously I couldn't email him and call it off or anything. And so we had to reschedule for another 6 months later. And Mark Passio had always been asking me, oh, Vinny, how'd you get David Icke on the show? I'd love to have him on my show and what have you. And he couldn't get him. So I had David Icke coming up on my show, and so I was like, wait a second, what do you do for your friends? What they can't do for themselves. So that's why I brought Mark on the show to meet his hero, David Icke, and have one of the most extraordinarily encouraging and conscious discussions that I think maybe anybody will ever hear. That's why it's, I think, maybe one of the best shows, if not the best shows that I ever done, and I highly recommend everybody do it. And if you are a talk radio show host, try and, if you can, try and get yourself Mark Passio on the show. Try and get yourself David Icke on the show. They won't be around forever. And if nothing else, just for the fact to say that you did do it. You got somebody who was incredibly enlightened. You got somebody who was incredibly well researched. You got somebody who was extraordinarily articulate. You got somebody who's actually able to encourage you, to give you courage, to enlighten you, to give you knowledge, coming from the Latin gnosis, right? This is what we're here to do. We're not here to believe. We're not here to think. We're here to know the truth, the inimitable truth. It was true when the universe began. It will be true when the universe ends. It is inimitable. It can't be imitated. It can't be interpolated. It is what it is. It isn't what it isn't. And just because things can be solid, that's not a bad thing. It just eliminates confusion. Because the reason why everybody's so confused these days is because that's what the intelligence agencies infiltrated the media and publishing in order to do, to confuse you so that you wouldn't know what's going on, so that you wouldn't be able to do anything to stop them. And I'll leave you with this. George Orwell's final words in an interview conducted by the BBC, he asked if there was a lesson to divine from this vision of a nightmarish totalitarian future. He said, if you want to interpret the meaning of it, it is this: don't let it happen. It's up to you.
I want to say my thanks to you, and I want to say my highs to Luke Hurley and Jonathan Eisen. They're both your friends and very good people. I know them also, and thanks for Luke to fixing this up, basically this interview. And you went over the top, and I love it. I love it. There has to be a challenge, and people like you who have that knowledge. You always exceed the expectations. I love it. And thank you, Vinny.
Thank you.
You're the man.
I know. I get that a lot.
All right. Thanks to everybody who subscribed, or let's not say subscribe, but maybe they will after this show also, but who supported and who watched us talk real shit.
Oh, I almost forgot something. The last show that I did, I was really, really upset because I had to give my studio computer to my ex. And so I asked if people would donate to me some money so that I could get a new studio computer, because my old one's in the shop and won't be fixed for ages. And I needed about $1,000. And after that show, within 72 hours, I had the amount of money that I needed to get the new computer. And as you can see, this broadcast that we're doing, Riku, you are the first show that I have done with my new setup that was paid for within 72 hours of fundraising. When I did that fundraiser, it was a test to see whether or not there was still support out there for me, to see whether or not I could still continue broadcasting. And the support is there, and I can continue broadcasting. And I want all of you to know that have donated to me, that have supported me, that have shared my shows, that have left your little comments and your likes and your subscriptions and every little tiny thing that you do, all the word of mouth that you share, anything that in any way that shows some kind of support towards me. I just want to say thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I am incredibly grateful. And it is very humbling to know that I've spoken to my listeners, many of them over the years, and they're all the same kind of people. They've been traumatized, but they're cool. They've been fooled, but they're intelligent enough to realize it. They are talented. They are truly golden people. And I am so glad. The reason why I call them golden is because gold never loses its shine. And all of you who support me, you shine. And I am so grateful.
So, ladies, gentlemen, and transgenders, or how you put it, there's two very well-known Eastwoods in the world: Vinny Eastwood and the other guy. See you later.
That's cute.
Yeah, I used that in the end.
Oh,
That was great, man. Fuck you guys, Bloom, because I'm comparing you, of course, with the other like big guys, like I talked, like Max and Ulla Dammegård, and David Weiss is going to be on my show again for a debate on the flat Earth, not a debate with me, but with the other people, and then like conspiracy music guru and you fucking all you just go like you just go so high and so you just make me feel little in a good way. It's not that I'm comparing myself as a person, but in the knowledge wise, you just go over.
There's an old saying that we all stand on the shoulders of giants, that we might reach the stars.